So I had a pretty good question the other day from someone. They said, well, how do I improve my hip internal rotation? Normally we're very focused on external rotation, whether that be in something like the world's greatest stretch, here where we're pushing out against the knee to bias external rotation, or perhaps even pigeon pose. Any of those, what are you trying to do? You're trying to bias the femur in external rotation within the acetabulum or the hip. But internal rotation can be another one that's trickier. So, a couple different drills. The first one, I got this from Andrea Spina. He teaches FRC, functional range conditioning. So, full credit to him. I don't know if it was his idea, but he was the first one that I saw, or the first one that I learned it from. A variety of other people have published things recently about it. It's called the Shin box. And I know T-Nation put up an article about it recently, Men's Health, talking about how it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's been out for a while, just like anything. They try to hype it up, revolutionize it. Anyways, so you're going to start in this kind of pseudo 90-90 position. You're going to drop both legs to the floor, just like that. Your foot will be close to the opposite knee, and you'll be almost in a 90-90 position. Now, some people like to go a little bit closer with the feet. I like to kind of push them out to about 90 degrees at both. For the external rotation, you can simply lay over the front leg, and you can also, don't be afraid to go into flexion and kind of hunt around. You'll feel your QL on the back side, along with your spinal erectors. You'll feel those get a nice stretch in them. You can go with a straight spine and lead over that front leg. And you can also rotate out. If your back cracks, it's a free adjustment. Now, this guy's an internal, this guy's an external rotation. So, you can push back over this guy, try to hang out in the capsule. What I found to be a little bit more effective is to simply lean back, and now I'm rotating my pelvis into external rotation, and then back into internal rotation. So I'm trying not to lead the movement with my shoulders. I'm trying to actually lead it with my pelvis. Try to flip to the side a little bit so you can see what my hips are doing. So I'm trying to rotate back, rotate forward. And you'll feel it specifically on the inside of the femur as the acetabulum gets pushed back and the femur stays in one place. You're going to feel a stretch deep within your hip socket. That's what you're looking for. Now, to make it even more complicated, what you can do is to get to the other side, pick your hands up, and learn to control that range of motion using just your hips. Over time, you can then work into these sorts of patterns where you get out of the bottom with no hands on both sides. Kind of a flow. Now, what you'll find is that for me, typically my left hip is a little bit tighter within internal rotation. That's characteristic of more of a PRI methodology. I'm not going to get into that in this video. But that's what they typically find is less internal rotation on the left in some folks, more external rotation on the left, more internal rotation on the right. So because of that, you're going to be limited in internal rotation. And this side is always the one that I like to hang out on for a little bit longer. Try to swivel the hips a little bit. So there's drill number one. Drill number two is something that is similar, but now you're going to bias a little bit more the posterior hip capsule. So you're going to need either a squat rack, a kettlebell, something that you can put the leg on. And now, if you see my other video on a posterior hip capsule mobilization, essentially what you're doing is you're in a quadruped position, you're shifting the weight into the hip and extending the leg back, trying to drive the femur out the back of the socket. So, for this one, what you're going to do is put the kettlebell in line with the leg, put the leg over it, so now you're going to bias some internal rotation here, extend the leg back, and then just kind of hunt around. I got this one from Dark Side Strength. That's Quinn Henoch and or Hennick and Ryan Brown. They're both good guys. From the side, again, put the kettlebells there, extend back, hunt around. You know, don't be afraid to change the position of your pelvis one way versus another. Try and work yourself into deep reflection. Now, those are kind of the mobility pieces. Stability-wise, this drill is fairly simple. It's going to start out just like the other one, pseudo 90-90. Lay on your back. From here, you're trying to drive the knees together and touch. You can walk the feet out a little bit wider. It's essentially just active control of internal rotation. Second drill, following along the stability component. Go back to your shin box here. From this position, learn to lift up the knee and fire the adductor. So it's going to be tough. Initially, this one took me a little while to get, and occasionally you get a cramp like I just did. But learning to bring that knee up and get that adductor to fire will be very beneficial for activating the interior portion of the thigh. Second progression is to pick the foot up. It's a little bit tougher, and what you're going to find is in order to pick this leg up, this adductor on the opposite leg is going to have to push into the floor. So you're killing two birds with one stone, essentially. And that shaking is just simply because I need to learn to own that range of motion and do these sort of isometric holds more. Flip, opposite leg, obviously. Last one, side plank. Most people stack the leg. For starters, you're going to split the leg. Top leg is going to be in front. Simply push up into a side plank, and you should feel that adductor start to fire. Once you've been doing it for a little while, bring the bottom leg up into flexion, and now you're really going to hit that adductor. Don't allow your hips to rotate open. Keep them closed. Allow that adductor to really work. So, as you can tell, it wasn't easy. If you feel a clicking or a popping phenomenon when you're doing these and you're getting that adductor to fire, it could just be a little bit of, the way I had a PT describe it to me is your pubic symphysis just clicking back into place. Now that could be incorrect and she could have been wrong, but the first time I experienced it, it sounded like click click on both sides of my adductor, and it was an immense relief. It felt like everything got put back into place, like when you crack your back. So if you feel that phenomenon, there's nothing wrong. That's just one potential hypothesis that I heard from a PT when I asked her about it. So anyways, give those drills a shot. Try and get your adductors fired up, and that's going to help improve internal rotation after you've opened up the hips with drills like the shin box and with the posterior hip capsule mobilization as well. So give those a shot before you squat, before you deadlift, anything where you have higher positions of hip flexion, and hopefully that's going to help you to improve that hip internal rotation.